Good morning. My name is Trish McFarland. I'm president of the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce, and we are thrilled to have you here with us this morning for another presentation of our employer panel discussing addiction in the workplace. We have a full agenda for you this morning, and we'd like to get started in just a minute, but I would like to introduce Jim Bitterly from EDSI, who is our partner. Jim, is there anything you want to add this morning before we get started?
No, Trish, just other than thank you to everybody for joining. This is a great opportunity, I think, for everybody that's joining to learn about hiring those in recovery and really accessing a different pool of labor that is out there that can be highly productive. So I think there's a lot of value by listening to those folks that are on the panel because they have experience and knowledge and best practices that we can take advantage of. So thank you, everybody, for joining.
Great. Jim, thank you so much for being with us here today. We're excited to have our full panel. I just wanted to let everybody know that as we are going through the presentation, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A portion of the screen, and we will get them answered at the end of the program, or if it seems like it fits the conversation, I'll ask the questions as we're moving along. So as I mentioned, this is the employer panel for discussing addiction in the workplace and hiring a whole new pool of talent. And we're excited to have three really great panelists with us today that are going to share best practices and tell us a little bit about themselves. So we'll start with Mike Rank, CEO of the Community YMCA. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Trish, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be a part of this panel and this important discussion. As Trish said, I'm the CEO of the Community Y of Eastern Delaware County. We have three branches, one branch in Lansdowne, one in Ridley, and one in Springfield. We employ over 700 people in the county, and we do everything from full-day childcare to senior fitness. I've been with the Y over 30 years, and I don't want to go any further than that. So thanks a lot.
Mike, thank you so much. And Lauren?
Hi, my name is Lauren Pearson. I am the manager for our First Step program with EDSI. I've been with EDSI for 8 years. I've dealt with a lot of different populations, but during that time have gone back to school for drug and alcohol counseling and specialize in working with the reentry and recovery populations.
Lauren, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And Neil, can you just tell us who you are and what you do before we get started?
Yes, my name is Neil Murphy. I work with a non-medical healthcare agency here at Upper Darby. And I'm also a pastor of a recovery church over in South Jersey. So basically we have about 90 or 100 caregivers on our in employment right now. And we're currently working with a recovery program in Lansdowne, trying to integrate those folks back into the workforce. So I'm excited to be here this morning. Thank you.
Great, Neil. Thank you so much for being with us. And before we get into the Q&As, I'll just remind everybody that's listening or viewing this webinar today, if you have any questions as we go through the program, please type them in the Q&A and we will get them answered during the program. And if we don't have time for them, we will definitely get you the answer and information you need in a timely manner. So we'll go through these questions. I will kind of go through the different panelists to make sure that we're hearing from everyone. But if you have a strong passion for an answer, please feel free to jump in and answer the question as we go through. But you know, Neil just touched on this a little bit, but I would love to hear kind of what gives you passion for hiring and supporting individuals that may be in recovery.
That's for me.
Yeah, Neil, let's start with you and then we can go to Lauren and Mike, but I think that it would be great to start with you.
I myself have 35 years clean and sober. So that is my passion to know where I came from and how I can help out others who may have been in the same spot that I was. So that's a real passion, the passion of my heart, and really just realizing that every single person has potential to be a wonderful member of the community. So my passion comes from within. So that's all I got to say about that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Neil. Lauren, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I have worked closely with a lot of individuals who are active in their recovery, partnered with local MVP recovery homes, have worked with some other local recovery homes in the area, and have really had the opportunity to, over the years, see people grow and become the person that they always wanted to be, but didn't always think was possible. And so I think for me, it's just really being able to help and support people become the best version of themselves, whatever that looks like.
That's great. And Mike?
So I think my belief comes firmly from what the why is all about. And the why is about being with the people business and serving our community. We have at the why a strong belief that we're in the community to help people learn, grow, and thrive. And part of that community that we serve is the recovery community. And we want to make sure that we're serving everyone in the community, from young to old, and making sure they have every opportunity that they may not have had in earlier in life because of circumstances or just because of, of life. And that's how we look at it. Everyone's equal and everyone wants to thrive and get to as everyone has said, be the person they've always wanted to be.
Thank you so much, Mike. Mike, and we'll stay with you. Can you talk about what the Y is currently doing that helps to make employees successful, and if you offer any unique benefits to those in recovery?
So, we really work with people in recovery like we would any other employee. And we feel that's important, that there are no special exceptions or anything. So we do have a few people working with us that are in recovery now. We work within their schedules. So when they have appointments or when they have things that are dealing in their recovery process, we do work their schedules around that. We believe real strongly that that's part of our responsibility as an employer, is to help people no matter what their situation is. So we try as best we can to continually work and understand and be that empathetic, compassionate employer, because as I said before, the why is really about the people business, and that means everybody in our community.
Thank you, Mike. You can tell that there's definitely a passion there. Lauren, would you be able to say if EDSI is offering any benefits to those that are being supported in recovery?
Absolutely. So not even just for those in recovery, but to support all of our staff. And we do always have the employee assistance program. So anybody that's looking for counseling, any additional like medical support, they're able to do that through our employee assistance program. As well, they have access to teledoc, all of those things. We also offer schedule shaping at some of our sites and flex schedules. So that gives our employees, especially those in recovery, the ability to make sure that they're making their group meetings, their AA meetings, any doctor's appointments that they need for following up therapy, those kinds of things, so that they're able to really maintain their sobriety and recovery. As we all know, if their recovery doesn't come first, there is no second. So we want to make sure that their mental health is really taken care of and they're doing all the things to keep themselves well.
Thank you, Lauren. And Neil, anything that you're doing in your job, or even
Yeah, I agree with them. It's schedule shaping and making, like I said, it is sobriety comes first, because if that goes, everything else is going to go. So it really is just communication and allowing the individual to really, it takes a while for their, I won't say that their brains to get rewired, but kind of to integrate back into the workforce. It takes a little while, depending if they're coming from a year-long program, or a 6-month program, or whatever their need is. So I think it is just communication is really, really important, and just it doesn't, not to be cheesy, but just to encourage them and validate them, and really have a heart for them. And like Mike said, just it is about people, and it is about touching their heart and allowing them to get back into the workforce. So I think, again, making the schedule shaping and make sure they are hitting meetings, and if possible, to have communication with their recovery coach or their mentor or their sponsor. Just make sure they're in contact and communication, and that's what seems to be successful for us.
Neil, as we're just going through this on the fly live here, Derek from Recovery Centers of America missed your title during your introduction, and he is curious where the church that you pastor in South New Jersey. Could you?
The church is called the Lord's Vineyard, and we were in Woodbury until COVID stuff happened. So now we're just meeting in West Defford. And is that Mike from Recovery Centers of America?
Derek.
Derek. Okay, yeah. Yeah. So I'm familiar with those folks. Yeah, that's it. So it's in South Jersey. It's right in West Defford, and yeah. So Recovery Centers of America is doing a great job as well. That's good.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for the audible there. Neil, we'll stay with you. What kind of company culture or organizational values do you find supports employees in recovery the best? You're hiring them and you're also working with them outside. What do you think works best for them?
Well, I think again, there's a lot of catchphrases and stuff, and it's called the stigma of being in recovery. So I find that people don't really want to be, this is a new hire, and this is Jane, and she's in recovery. They don't want the stigma, just like the folks that we bring on who just may have been incarcerated and now they're and get them into the workforce as well. They don't want the stigma of being, just fresh from an institution or fresh from recovery. So we try to get that stigma away of saying this is so and so and they're in recovery, and it really is treating them like any other new hire, which means we if your company does drug test people, don't just drug test the folks that are in recovery, but yes, we across the board, you're doing random drug testing for people. And I would suggest again, just so really it's a culture of people who have been so beat down and so discouraged. It really means showing them their worth, showing them their value, and just really again just being a mentor, being a coach, being because so many people are so downtrodden and they need to be encouraged. So that's just it may sound cheesy, but it's not cheesy. It's just to encourage people, love people, and validate them as important for the company.
Thank you, Neil. And I'll go to Mike now. And I heard in your first answer kind of some of the similar phrases of treating everybody the same. Can you talk a little bit about what your company culture does and how you support those employees?
Sure. Well, I think what Neil just said and what others have said is real important. Is communication is key, and making sure that everyone is treated as equals and not as either second class or, hey, I'm in recovery, I deserve this. We believe strongly in 4 key values at the Y: caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility. And we expect that out of all of our staff, whether they're new staff, old staff, recovery, lifeguards, whatever. So we do not at the Y announce to everyone, hey, we just hired so-and-so who's coming out of recovery. Those are private conversations that people have with each other, and that'll come out as people work together and people accept that. We believe strongly in someone should be coming in, given job expectations. Here's what we want, and we're going to work with you, and you're not working for us, You're working with us to help improve the community, and you're part of the community. So help us do that. And I think the biggest thing I could point out in terms of company culture is just making sure the communication is there. Just making sure we're communicating the same way to everybody. And if people do have, some special needs in communication, making sure we're addressing those as we go along. And that seems to have worked. Again, having people constantly around us and being in that people business, really, it really does help us. And I think that all flows from the bottom up. People accept people and we move forward.
That's fantastic. And Lauren, is there anything that you'd like to share?
Sure. So at EDSI, we are always going to circle back to our core values: show up, smile, and support. So we want to make sure that we are always doing all of those things, not just for our employees, but also for our customers. Part of that is really leaning into a servant leadership model, making sure that we are having direct report meetings at least every other week, creating a safe space for people to kind of talk about whatever it is that they need. So making sure that we're taking that time, setting out an hour a month that is just for that employee. And they can kind of tell us what they need, what's working, what's going well, what's not going well, and then really figuring out a plan and a course of action to individually support that person, whether it be in, to get to do the things that they need to do for their health, or if it's support at work for a problem that's there.
That's awesome. Making sure you're hearing people where they are, I think, is so important through their stages of recovery and just being an active and engaged employee in your organization. And it sounds like you all really feel that, and it's top down. So that's really exciting. Lauren, what are some of the general characteristics you focus on when you're considering hiring a potential candidate? And are any of those traits cultivated through the recovery process?
Sure. So I think especially somebody that is in recovery, I think self-awareness and accountability are key and something that they actively work on daily. So really kind of talking to people through that, gauging their accountability levels, seeing their self-awareness is always a good thing. Reliability is also a big one. And it also ends up being a concern. So I try to include reliability questions in there because I want to set people up for success. I want to make sure that they're in a place that they can meet the demands of the job, even if it requires a few adjustments.
Great. Thank you so much. Mike, what are some of the general characteristics that you would focus on hiring a potential candidate, or if there's somebody in the organization that's going through recovery? What are you kind of looking for, helping to coach them towards?
So I think there are two different answers to that. First, what are we looking for in new hires is really just people skills. Can you relate to people? Can you talk to people? I like what Lauren said about reliability. Every business relies on people showing up on time and working their shifts and doing what they're supposed to do. So we talk a lot about those skills and a lot about, those needs of our business and the needs of our members and the people we're serving. So people skills is number one. A smile on your face is always good. The other part of the question about what do we do with current employees who may be in active recovery, we do the same thing. They're not treated any differently. We may work a little bit harder on adjusting their work schedules to help with that recovery, to help with different appointments or meetings they may have. We may be a little more flexible with people's time schedules and being on time or late, depending on their situation. But the biggest thing that I encourage our staff to do is have just those one-on-one conversations with people, those personal conversations. How did your move go today? What's the weather like outside? Oh, you're not wearing the right shirt today. We're on blue day instead of white day. Just those regular everyday conversations to help the people feel like they're not in recovery. like they don't have the magnifying glass on them. So they're treated just like everybody else. And there can be, you can do that a number of different ways, but again, it comes down to talking with people and communication, and feeling that empathy and that feeling for where they've been and where they're going and where they want to get to.
That's great, Mike. Thank you so much. And Neil, what are some of the general characteristics that you're looking for, and any of those traits that are through the recovery process? And same kind of question with Mike, is there anything that you're doing specifically for anyone that might be in recovery while working? Can you share some of your thoughts with that?
Yeah, I agree with Mike and Lauren, and the same thing. As I said before, you don't want to label someone or label them as the recovery people or the people that were incarcerated, but it really is. It goes back to, like you said, the reliability. And so when people are coming out, so all the people, the thousands of people that we've dealt with, and it takes a while for their minds to get not rewired, but if they've been on the run, they've been running for years, and then they go for once again 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, and then they're trying to get back into the workforce. Still, a lot of times they have a lot of sometimes shame. They have a lot of time just guilt stuff, and have a lot of like everybody does, a lot of things that need to be worked through, and that's a process. But I think it does come down to their supervisors, to their managers, to HR, to really just again encourage them. Again, not take it with kid gloves, but really tell them what's expected of them. Once again, coming on time, doing this, doing that. And most of the time, when you're out and about, you don't want to conform to the rules and regulations of society. So that's why recovery houses are so important, because they have structure. They have, hey, you have to make your bed. You have to do this. You have to do that. That helps them start the process of getting back into a purposeful, meaningful life. But I think it's great. It is reliability, and just like any other employee, but just checking in on them, and and then not let them give you just a pat answer. How you doing today? This and that. But just kind of probe a little deeper. And really, again, if you can connect their heart, you can connect with their heart, you really can win their trust, and they end up being great employees, I found out.
That is fantastic. Neil, we'll stay with you. I'll keep you going here. So, some of the feedback we've heard that many employers are concerned about a relapse. Do you have any advice about that, and to prevent a relapse, or, supporting somebody through the process?
Oh yeah, it just so many friends come to mind, and so many people come to mind, and so many people who've passed on come to mind. Because it really is a struggle, but it's not just a cliche. We do recover, and so it just it goes back to not the cliche like meeting makers make it. I've heard that so many times, and the person ends up passing away. So it's not just going to the meeting, because you can sit in the meeting and you can pick up the cliches and kind of repeat that stuff, but it really does come down to the heart, And so I find once again, just really a communication, like the reliability. Is it excessive latenesses all of a sudden? Is it call outs? Is it excessive bathroom breaks? All of a sudden, are they really amped up one day, like really off the wall, animated and amped up? And it just it's just behaviors they have. And then if an employer suspects something, it's not, bosses don't have time to 1 second. Bosses don't have time to be snooping around. And it's not that, but it's really just accountability and laying out for them what's expected. If it is mandatory drug testing, they mandatory drug tests high school athletes or this and that, but it isn't just drug testing, Joe and Sally, but, just make it fair across the board and let them know when they're hired, there will be, surprise drug testing, and just really, encourage them. And if there is an issue that pops up, something on your radar, is there someone like a life coach, a recovery coach, a sponsor that you can reach out to, not break any HIPAA laws or anything, but I'm just saying to reach out to them and, how can I help you? And that's it. So how can I help you is a good thing. And hopefully if they'll open up, they'll be successful.
Thank you so much, Neil. Lauren, how about you? can you share your thoughts?
Sure. So I think number one for me is, the issue with a relapse is that oftentimes shame accompanies a relapse. So I think really making something like it goes back to that safe space, right? So really doing the work to destigmatize substance use disorders and what that looks like, not just with, our one employee that is in recovery, but with the entire office, right? So, a substance use disorder is a medical diagnosis that is chronic, just like diabetes or high blood pressure. So if someone that is on a special diet that is diabetic, eats a slice of cake one day and their blood sugar spikes, could that be considered a relapse? Yes. Is there shame attached to it? Not as much, right? So I think, first of all, like just making sure that like that stigma is lifted as much as possible, at least in your conversations with that employee, so that if, say, they have behavior that, Neil just highlighted so beautifully, we can have that conversation and they're able to say, you know what, I slipped. I really think that I may need to go and do, a 30-day detox or kick up from like OP to IOP, that we can create that space and that they feel safe saying that. And, being able to like maintain and hold their employment and keep their career intact while they're doing that could make the difference between a slip and a full relapse. So I think in that sense, just being the person that someone can come to and making it okay is probably the biggest tool in my arsenal for working with someone that's in recovery.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren. Mike, is there anything additional you'd like to add as we're supporting these folks?
So I think everything that Neil and Lauren has mentioned is important, but I think equally important is to understand that addiction is an illness. It is a chronic illness, just like cancer or diabetes. And if we have employees going through cancer treatments, we make accommodations. If we have people who are severely diabetic or epileptic, we make accommodations. And I think the same goes for people in recovery. If a person relapses, that's no different than a person getting the flu, and we just have to deal with it. I think it's also important to note that, for employers, we don't ask here at the Y whether you're in recovery when you apply for a job. That's a self-disclosure. And if you tell us, that's great. If it comes up in conversation, we work with that and we know that, but we don't ask, because everyone should be treated equally, whether they're in recovery or whether they're not in recovery, whether they have cancer or whether they have diabetes. So I think that's important to note. And again, it comes down to communication and compassion. Just having the empathy to feel what other people are going through.
You are so right. And so at this point, I'm going to shift to the questions from our audience. And I would like to remind everybody, if you have a question for our panelist, please put it in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we will get that question answered live as we go through this. So the first question we have is from Kenneth, and he asked, is there anything that surprised you about someone who you have hired in recovery that is in recovery? Mike, we'll start with you. Is there anything that that you know of? Because I know that you don't ask, so you may not know.
We don't ask, but we've had a few people disclose, and I think the biggest, it's not really a surprise for me, but it's been a surprise for other staff, is just trying to eliminate that stigma. Because once a person says I'm in recovery, I think there is a stigma that goes, or a, if you will, a Charlie Brown cloud that goes over their head, and people go, oh my gosh, that person's in recovery, we got to really watch them. And that hasn't been the case that we've experienced. I think it's been one that, at least in our experience, the people that have worked with us who are in recovery have worked actually harder to prove themselves. And we didn't want that either. We want everyone treated the same way. So I think it's what is the Y's mission is to serve people And it's something that we need to do more of and work with all our communities. And I don't think, long-winded story, I don't think there is a surprise. It's everyone's a person, and let's work with that.
That's great, Mike. Thank you. Lauren, how about you?
I would agree with Mike. I think people are just people. We are in the business of helping. So I think one of the best values that I found that like I wasn't expecting was that those individuals have so many additional resources because they've used them, right? They've explored different resources. They've gone to different places. So like, I think for me, what I would take away, like, is like, sometimes you find that they have some surprising contributions that you weren't counting on.
That's great. And Neil?
Yeah, I agree. Just again with you, like any coworker or any person you hire, if it just becomes like, you know, the clocking in and clocking out and going through the mundane you know, a day at work. But when you talk and you communicate and and people open up, you know, you found people, so many beautiful talents and giftings they have, or you hire someone, you find out, you know, they have a master's degree, or someone is an artist, or someone is a poet, and someone is like all these beautiful giftings that they have. But it just, so that's it. It really goes back to just opening up, communicating, and just truly being invested, you know, as humans, you know. Once again, it just, because life is too short. It may sound, but it's true. And just really showing that you value them and you honor them, and you know, and they'll open up. And sometimes they don't want to share they have this gift or this talent or these things, but they're great. They're beautiful people, fantastic people. Some of the best employees that I've had over the years are people who've had that struggle. So again, it's not asking them right away and you know, your recovery, but just hire them like a regular hire. And if they need the additional support, give it to them. But the more you talk, like anybody, they'll open up, you know, maybe what giftings they have and what are their dreams and what are their hopes and what's, you know, what's going on in the future. So yeah, just encouragement and love. It really is.
That's awesome. So yeah, we're going to keep you on the screen. What is the most important recommendation you have for a company who is hiring people in recovery?
Yeah. I think again, so you want to like any new hire, you want to hope for the best, but right away you'll see maybe they aren't ready yet to get back into the workforce again. Whatever where they're coming from, so Oxford House, Recovery House, or institution, or whatever it might be, is sometimes maybe they're not ready. But if you and during the hiring process is so important. You know, what are the expectations, and just kind of laying out the, you know, like any new hire, these are the expectations, and if you need support, you say, how can I help you? And then like Lauren said, it just if they do slip up, once again, just the honesty is great before it becomes a catastrophe. Hey, if you slip up, just be honest and say, tell me, hey, I messed up, and that way we can get you back into once again, just IOP or just outpatient or back in a detox, but just get you back and back into the workforce. So just I guess transparency from the hire and transparency from the company saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to be on the up and up, and people appreciate honesty, you know, on both sides. I think that will be a pathway to success, I believe.
That's great. Mike, Lauren, is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
I think for me, like, I would just say, like, chances are everybody has already hired someone in recovery. So, you know, people aren't required to disclose that. It's not necessarily our right to know. But if, you know, you're supporting happy, healthy employees, then what you're doing is probably great. I think also making sure that, again, we are holding people accountable, we're supporting them in their recovery, but also like not making that an excuse. So generally people will rise to what their expectations are. So let's make sure we set our expectations just as high for someone that's in recovery as someone that's not.
Great. Mike?
I don't think I can add much to that, to either of those, other than to say, just remember that everyone's a person. And me personally, I tend to go back to a phrase, and I know I'm not saying it right, but but by the grace of God go I. And I've been fortunate not to have been a person who has been addicted. And I need to continually remember that. I've had addicted people in my family life. And I need to remember that everyone deserves a fair shake. Everyone deserves compassion. Everyone deserves respect. And no child grows up and says, I want to become an addict. I want to be a person in recovery. And I think we all need to remember that and just work with people as people.
That is so true. Everyone deserves compassion and respect. So Derek has a couple questions for us. So the first one is, too often he talks to individuals struggling and needing professional care for substance use disorders and are extremely hesitant because they fear their job will be in jeopardy. How can an employer create an environment that their employees know and feel comfortable to approach for assistance if they're struggling? And I feel like we've talked a lot about this as we've gone through, and you've all mentioned different things that an employer can do to make someone feel comfortable through the process and feel like they're in that safe space and empower them to have these conversations. But is there anything you want to add or highlight with, as Derek is working with these folks in recovery, that he can share with them?
I mean, I think checking in regularly is always key so that they know they have a time and space to come with you and that it's not few and far between, right? But I think the other part is making sure that people know what their options are. So if I go into recovery, like what does my PTO look like? Like, what is that bank? Do we offer short-term disability? How much of my salary will that cover? Is there an option to pay more into that from the beginning in my benefits so that I can increase my short-term disability? Because sometimes people be like, oh, well, I can't go into recovery because I only have a week and a half of PTO and I can't live off of 60% of my salary. And so I think really giving people the options to really take care of themselves and get the medical treatment that they need and letting them know logistically what that looks like for maintaining employment in their company.
Great. Thank you so much, Lauren. And Neil, is there anything else you want to add to help support that process?
Yeah, I think just during the interview and the hiring process, and if they share they're in recovery, or if know they're in recovery, and with I guess with Recovery Centers of America, you're this is who you're dealing with, but it really comes down to transparency. And I think Lauren said, setting the expectations for them high, so people can rise to their expectations. And if you're transparent and you say, hey, this is what's expected of you, and then just tell them right up front, if you do struggle, if you do mess up, once again, the transparency is so important. And again, if you connect with their heart, people will open up. Not always, but they will open up. But if you make that connection during the hiring process, and if they view you as they trust you, hopefully they will confide and say, "Hey, man, I'm struggling," And so that's it sounds basic, but it's not basic. But again, just the communication, the transparency, and just keeping up those lines, like the safe space to share. To, hey, man, what's going on? And if you win their heart, they will open up, and then you'll gain that employee. If they have to go away for a little bit to get things right, that's fine. But just the transparency and communication is the key, I think.
Great. Thank you so much, Neil. Transparency, communication, we've heard that over and over again, and that feels like that seems to be the key. Mike, is there anything that you would add in creating that space where somebody would feel comfortable in telling you that?
No, nothing substantial. I do think, though, it does come down to company or culture that you create as a leader in wherever you're working, to create that trusted space and that belief that whatever I take to my supervisor is okay. And I think you have to develop that from day one. Is here's our culture, here's what we're about, and talk to us. Be transparent. Let's be open with each other.
Fantastic. And one last question from the audience that we have here now. Before I ask this question, I'll remind everybody that if you have something that you would like to hear the panelists discuss, please type it in the Q&A and we will get that question answered before we wrap up this morning. So this last question that we have is, how is it best for a candidate in recovery to make their employer aware that they are in recovery to ensure that they will receive the proper support and understanding while employed? So Mike, I'm going to start with you on this one because I know that you don't ask that question. That's not something that required, it's, but how would you suggest that somebody who is in recovery bring that to the person that is interviewing them if they feel like they need to let you know? Do you have a suggestion on how they should do that?
I think they just should be open and honest about it. And as they're talking about employment, if they feel comfortable with that, disclosing that, hey, I'm in recovery. And this is what it means for me. I have a meeting every Tuesday at 1 o'clock. I have this I have to go to. And I think that starts the whole process. And that's where the company culture comes in. Not for the supervisor to say, whoa, you're in recovery, we can't have you here. It's to say, okay, we're fine with that. Let's keep moving forward. But we've all talked about communication and transparency. It has to that has to flow both ways. When you look through a piece of glass, it's not. We need to have glass that we can see through and not one-way glass, because our businesses will not survive without employees. And we need to make sure that at least at the Y, that our companies that our buildings are reflective of our community. So I think it just comes down to honesty, and if the person in recovery feels comfortable enough to say that and disclose that in an interview, then by all means they should. If they don't, it'll come later.
Great, Mike, thank you. Neil, is there anything that you would suggest how they would bring that to an employer as they're going through the hiring process?
Well, with I think there's a new little show on Netflix, and it's along that theme. It's Aubrey somebody or other, but she goes for her interview, and the guy, the boss, asks her, is there anything in your background for background check, a patch or whatever FBI check, anything in your background we should know about? Then she chose, to not disclose. Then he confronted her on it. So some companies do a background checks, but just again, not this use the word transparency, but if people, for us, we tell them we're going to do a background check, FBI check for every employee, but it doesn't mean you're not going to get hired. So I'm saying if we can be transparent, that goes back to the stigma. They know they have these things in their past, but just again, just the communication of saying, we are going to do a background check, that and but that doesn't mean you're not going to be hired. And so again, so they can talk about it and say what's going on. That will be helpful. And that way, we less stress for them too, knowing, hey, we still are going to hire you, even if you have a felony or this and that. We're still going to hire you, but just the communication stuff. I think. I hope I didn't ramble too much on that one.
And Neil,
no, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that, because we do ask that question, and here at the Y, because we have so many children and seniors, we do 3 different background checks. Nationwide, FBI, and also local. So we have right on our applications, have you ever been convicted of a crime? And the one thing that will disqualify people from working at the Y is when we do those background checks and a crime comes up and they've said no on the application, I've never been convicted. Mm-hmm. That right there sets off the tone of I'm going to keep something secret, I'm going to be dishonest with you, and that will disqualify someone at the Y. So I think what Neil just said, it's very important. Let people know you're going to do these background checks. They need to be honest, and we've never disqualified anyone for saying, hey, look, I did get arrested for this. You're going to find that on my background check. We take that and look at it and see if we can work with that.
That's
Great.
good.
Lauren, is there anything that you would suggest?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so we actually in our programs do coaching to address like being in recovery if someone chooses to disclose that during an interview. And even if they don't, but like they have scheduling stipulations, really being open and honest about the scheduling stipulations. Look, like I have somewhere I need to be like XYZ days a week. And it's really important that I do this so that I can show up my best for you and your company. I think, you know, making sure that like the employer knows that it is a priority and you want to be your best for them. And in order to do that, this is what needs to happen. I think shows a level of dedication and self-awareness that employers can appreciate.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing all of your thoughts and key components into making sure that everybody that deserves a second chance has a second chance. And I was taking notes as you were all speaking today, and I just want to highlight them for our attendees today as some of the key points that our employers have made this morning in really helping to get these folks in recovery, in active employment, and being successful. Sounds like company culture, that top-down leadership that is embraces the unknown almost and trust that these people will be fantastic employees. Communication, transparency, getting away from that stigma of somebody, quote unquote, in recovery, or somebody who has had an addiction, because addiction is an illness and it is a condition that we're trying to help our employees through and be successful in their employment. And I heard some of the taglines for the organizations as caring, honest, respect, responsibility, show up, smile, support, and having those people skills that really helped somebody feel comfortable in an organization. So those are some of the key takeaways I've heard this morning. And I feel like, I hope that everybody that has been viewing our webinar, or if you're able to watch this on YouTube after we finish recording, we hope you've taken some of these key points away to help making these people successful in their journey to be a thriving individual in society. Before we close today, is there anything else anybody wants to add? Anything that we missed, or a key point that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, I want to say a little something. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes. I'm so proud of my son. I have 6 children, and one of my children ended up getting in legal trouble, and it used to be called drug court. Now it's called recovery court. So again, people do recovery, and just so it's amazing that my son, through all the junk he had, he kind of brought upon himself. Then he ended up doing successfully graduating from recovery court, and today I'm proud to announce that him and his wife had their first little baby on my birthday. So that's very exciting. So again, we do recover, and this from my experiences and even my family's experience, that he got integrated back into the workforce, and just he's doing great. So it's nothing is impossible. So I want to encourage anybody that's struggling. You can make it, and beautiful things can happen. And one more point, I did stop over this recovery center in Media. I stopped by there 5 times and dropped off information that I'm willing to hire people for our company. But unfortunately, this company in Media never got back to me. I didn't know why, but I was trying to reach out to them and say, hey, we believe in you. We believe in your people. We believe in what you're doing. Please give us a call, and we'll drop off some applications. So that's exciting, and it's good stuff. So that's all from me.
Well, Neil, I won't speak for EDSI, but I know that they are ready to accept those people that you're hiring and get them hired. So hopefully after we finish this morning, we can connect offline and you can send us that information and we will make sure your folks are getting active employment. And Neil, is today your birthday? I'm sorry, did I miss?
Yeah, 60 years old. Can you believe it?
Happy birthday.
Yes,
Congratulations on the new grandchild. That's exciting.
Number 11. It's
Number
good.
11. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It gets better every one, I'm sure. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that. Mike, Lauren, is there anything else you'd like to share?
Trish?
Yep, Jim, I was
maybe
going to
just
let
one-
you close for us today.
Thank you. I kind of have just one other, just sort of quick question for the panelists.
Oh, good.
I mean, in Delaware County, we know that we've got over 3,000 people that are in recovery, that are in active recovery right now. So, and I also know that all the local employers are struggling to find people. So there's this population of folks, that's sort of this untapped population of folks that we could be looking at hiring. And I'm just wondering, for the three of you that have actively been hiring and had success with hiring people in recovery, have you seen any difference in terms of the retention that you have and the reliability of those folks? The biggest thing I hear from employers today is, just the reliability and the retention related issues with the standard population of folks that they're trying to hire. And are you seeing a difference in just sort of retention with and reliability of the folks that are actually actively in recovery?
Well, I can speak for the Y in that I think it's really about job match. And for anyone that we're hiring right now, if they enjoy the job, they stay. If they don't, they leave. And I don't think that's anything specific to people in recovery or not in recovery. I just think that's the job market now. People are job hopping. But as an employer, if you can make the job worthwhile and something that is fulfilling to the individual, they tend to stay longer than those that are just there for a paycheck.
I think you're right, Mike. We've had such we're always hiring caregivers, and it's amazing at the amount of folks who don't even show up for the first day of work. We go through this onboarding process. So I wouldn't say, once again, it's not just recovery folks. It's the job the job pool where people I'm not sure what it is. Maybe our parents said the same thing about us. These people, young people today, but we have a very hard time retaining not just people in recovery, but retaining people in general. So once again, it's just I don't see any really big variance between recovery folks and regular folks. It's a very hard time to find employees. That's all for me.
All right, great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for all being with us today. Before we close, Jim, is there anything else you would like to add?
Whoops. No, just want to thank the panelists and thank you, Trish, for organizing this and for moderating. And we work, with a lot of organizations just dealing with lots of talent related issues. And the talent shortage that we have today is just going to get worse for the next, really, if you look at Bureau of Labor Statistics data, it's going to get worse for the next 5 to 10 years. So employers are going to continue to struggle to find and retain people. And what I've seen is the employers that are actually really developing real capabilities of hiring those in recovery. What I continue to hear back time and time again is that many of these employees are more loyal and more hardworking than the general population that they find, simply because if you work with them and you support them through their issues or as they're dealing with their process, they tend to be more loyal and harder working and more motivated to support your organization. So I certainly just would encourage everybody to be open-minded and to be able to hire these folks and support them through the process, and you're going to end up with a lot of really good employees.
Thank you, Jim. And I want to thank Keith Moore from EDSI for helping us put the panel together today. And thank you all. Hopefully you've gained a lot of information today. And if you have any questions and you're watching this on YouTube, please look in the comments. We will have our contact information so you can reach out and get more information if that's something that you would like. And as always, thank you for joining us today. On behalf of the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce, EDSI, and all of our panelists, we hope you've enjoyed today and we look forward to working with you soon. Take care.
Wonderful.
Thank you.